Hey guys, welcome to FriYAY. We are going to wait for our amazing guest today. Her name is Iris. I hope everybody's been having an amazing day. Let's see. Come on. Hi Iris, welcome. Okay, so let's add our guest to the chat. Let's see, we're waiting. Hi Iris, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much
You
for
see
being
me
here
okay?
today. Yes, absolutely. Perfect. I love
Oh,
that green. It looks so good. It's like one of my
wonderful.
favorite colors.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so great.
No, thank you so much for
Sorry.
being here today. And I know that I haven't met you before, but I know that, Jessica has spoken so highly of you and that you're just, from what I know, are just this amazing person. So I'm so happy that the kids are going to be able to hear that from you today. So can you just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, about your testimony, and
Sure.
just about your life?
Absolutely. So it's a pretty interesting story. I was at the age of 6, I was actually placed with a family that took care of me, that was, for all intents and purposes, a foster parents for me. And I lived with them as of the age from 6 to 12. And
Wow.
that was after spending most of my very young life living with my mom and pretty much moving from place to place until she finally decided to place me with this family in Puerto Rico. So they became like my source of hope, right? And so it's very interesting for me that we're even having this conversation on Instagram and sharing my story with the kids, because his house plays a very special place in my heart, because I walk the shoes of all the kids that live there. I was that kid that got to this beautiful family, into their home, and that was embraced with open arms, but I really couldn't understand why they would even want me, right? They barely knew me, and it was a scary moment in my life when this family that for me were somewhat strangers, and now I face the reality that I really didn't know how long I was going to be living with them. So but God is so awesome. He is just such an amazing God that even when we feel that we are maybe unlovable, he will always place people in our lives that will love us regardless of our brokenness, right? So I was this rebellious kid that felt that no one could love me because I had gone through so much. And why was this family opening their doors for me? And why were they being so good to me? And why were they being so nice to me? And I really had a really hard time understanding why the love, right? But little did I know that it was God himself that chose this family for me, and that they would be the ones that would embrace me and help me on the road to restoration. So they actually introduced me to Christ, and gave me this amazing education, and got me into arts. And I danced for a very long time. They put me into dance classes, and I sang in the choir. And at the age of 6, I had to grow up really, really fast, right? And this was God's way of giving me back my childhood. And so to me, that was huge. I could just be a kid and learn to play games and play with kids my own age and be part of school. Going to school every day was not the norm for me. It was not the norm. It was not the norm to just get up and have someone make me breakfast and put on a uniform and go to school and, be part of a class and have to study and do homework. And, that discipline just was not the norm for me, because that was not what I was used to, even at that very young age. So this family really gave me a big chance, and they learned to understand my woundedness and love me through it. And so I lived with them until I was about 10 years old. And then at the age of 10, my mom called for me again. And so I lived with her I went back to live with my mom, and it was a roller coaster of events where once again we were moving from place to place, and just a lot of instability and just a lot of emotional abuse. And so until I met at the age of 12, I met my dad, my biological father, and then I moved in with him, and I pretty much lived with him until I became an adult. So my early childhood was very difficult because there were a lot of many changes, and that caused me, when I became a teenager, that caused me to get really mad at God. You know, I just became very rebellious, and I was just angry. I was angry at the world. I was angry at God. I couldn't understand what was happening because I lived with this amazing family, and here I was back in really difficult circumstances, and now meeting a dad that I had never known until the age of 12. So all these changes really confused me and took me to a really dark place. And I tell you, it was going from those teen years into adulthood was even more challenging because I became even more rebellious. You know, I was that kid that skipped school half the year, and even though
Me
I was
too.
even though I was an honor student, you know, I was like, you know, I just don't want any of this, you know. So it became increasingly even more difficult. But, you know, I grew up faster than I thought I needed to. And, but, you know, God is so amazing that no matter what happened in my life, he always placed these people in my life. People would just come into my life to minister and to love on me and to just try to give me that second chance. You know, I know you've gone through a lot, but look, let me tell you about this Jesus that loves you. And let me just tell you about this God that we know that could, you know, restore all those things and make your life new. And, you know, if anything else, that's a message that I want to share with the world. It's like, you know, no matter what the brokenness is, like God is going to meet us exactly where we are. And he's going to love us and tell us who we are, right? So while all these changes really brought me to a place that I really had no idea who I really was and what is this world going to shape me into being, God stepped in and he told me who I was. You know, he brought me to the reality that I was always loved, that I had a purpose in life, and that if I could just seek him and get to know him a little bit, right, he would show me a whole lot. I just had to have a willing heart to do that. So it took a few years to do that. It took a really long time. And at age 26, that's a really long time. At age 26, at that point, you know, I had been married, divorced,
Wow.
with a child, facing a whole new world. And God stepped in. You know, I found myself in this really dark place one day, and with great emptiness. And it was an Easter Sunday. And I remember someone invited me to church. And I was like, I've made so many excuses to go to church. This person kept inviting me over and over and over. And every Sunday I had a different excuse, but it was this Easter Sunday. So how could you give an excuse, a good enough excuse on Easter Sunday? And so, you know, I went, and I remember that pastor did that altar call. And I was I was a person in the very last row. I wanted to go so unnoticed. I figured if I was close enough to the door, I would be the first one out, right? And when that altar call came around, I just felt that God just tugged at my heart, and he just plucked me out of that crowd of people. And that altar call was just for me. And when I went up to that altar and I said to God, you know, Jesus, there's this hole in my heart. And I know that there's absolutely nothing in this world that can fill it. And he stepped in. He stepped in. And let me tell you, I was at a point in my life that while I had this darkness in my heart, at this point I had a career. I thought I was at the top of my game. You know, I just thought this is, for all intents and purposes, everything was going right. But my heart wasn't right. Mm-hmm. So God stepped in and said, you know, I'm going to make all things new. If you could give me your heart, I'm just going to make all things new. And that's exactly what he did. And from that point on, I'm not going to tell you how old I am now, but from that point on, he started layer by layer restoring every brokenness, every woundedness, every disappointment, every moment that I felt that I was abandoned or rejected, or that I was worthless, or that no one in this world would ever love me because I was just simply unlovable. You know, because sometimes, you know, when you're given up or removed from your parents that are supposed to normally love you, you just get a sense that just you're unlovable. If your parents can't love you, no one can love you. And God then steps in and says, wait a minute, I am your Father in heaven. You know, our parents here are going to make lots of mistakes. And, you know, but our God in heaven, our Father in heaven, is here to tell us that he is the one that's never going to leave us. He's never going to disappoint us. He's going to restore us so we can see clearly, right? Unveil our eyes so we can see who we truly are and our purpose in life. And so that little girl that stepped into that home, broken, feeling worthless, turned out to be okay, right? Because the love of God stepped in and changed everything. Changed everything. So, you know, fast forward, then I stepped into the His House world, right? As a volunteer so many years later. And, you know, I just thought, gosh, I would leave my corporate job in a heartbeat if I can work for His House. Because I understand the heart of every child that walks through those doors. And I want to be the one that could share with them that there's hope. Right. That your life doesn't end here, right? Right. And that's a beautiful thing about the Word of God, right? That no matter what valleys or no matter what hardships or how much pain we can endure in one lifetime, that God says to us, there's hope. We don't get stuck there. We're not supposed to stay there. Right. There is a what if, right? There is a tomorrow. And if we can just give God a chance, if we could just trust him enough, right, to just let him in, then he really does make all things new. So, you know, I'm blessed to be connected with His House, and I love how every day a child has hope there. And I love the fact that the community can come together and make a difference in the life of that child. And I love to know that maybe I was one of those people that I gave that child the very first Bible. I love to know that I was one of the first people, maybe in one of those children out of all the kids at His House, that have lived there, and that I could just say, hey, you know what? You're going to be okay. If you could just let us love on you a little bit, you're going to be okay. Because let me introduce you to my friend, Jesus, right? Let him step in and let him see. You have to see what he can do. Because if he did it for me, he could do it for anybody. So today, you know, I live a very different life. And, you know, I want to change the world. I want the world to know that we serve a God that is a restorer of all. Yes. That no matter how much this world, so much can happen in this world, and no matter how much pain can be caused in your life, that we serve a God that's a healer. He's a restorer. And he wants to know you. He wants to know you, right? Yes. He wants to know every detail about you. And he wants to make all things new. So you then can share that with others and hopefully be an instrument of healing, that your testimony will be the reality check that someone that's hurting needs to know, so they know who God is through our story, right? So that was a whole lot.
That's a whole lot, but it's a whole lot of amazingness, though. I love to hear stories like this, because I love, one of my favorite things, I read a lot, and I love hearing these stories because it shows how there's so many negatives in life, especially going on right now with everything COVID-19. A lot of things are going on right now, and you know, situations can seem dark, but you can always pull the good out of the bad. Absolutely. God always does. He always comes in the last minute and he's like, wait, I know it seems dark, but I'm here and I'm here to take care of it. So I just think that that's so amazing, that from that experience that you had so early on in your life, that you were able to turn that around into something that just, and just live your life a whole other way, because a lot of people don't. and then they live their lives mad. They live their lives sad. They live their lives wondering, what if, what if? But the truth is that, at least for me, in my life, because I've not exactly what you've been through, but I've been through my own kind of things, and I've definitely realized that, no matter what happens, no matter all the bad things that happen to us in life, God's still there, and he's always present. And, whenever you need help, you can just say, he may not be the response you want to get, but he'll still be there. So, what I did want to touch on, because I know you don't have much time with us today, is that you do, beyond what you're doing for us right now, you do a lot of philanthropic work, and you help out in other ways. So I just wanted you to talk about that a little bit, kind of talk about what else it is that you do in the community, because I know Jessica told me that you do a lot of stuff to help out, and I love everything to do with any sort of nonprofit. So I just want to hear about the nonprofit that you do a lot of work with, and if you could just talk about that for a little bit.
Absolutely. So, here's the thing that, when God comes in and shakes your life up and changes it in the way he did in mine, you want to live a life of gratitude, right? You want to live a life that you want to make a difference in everything that you do. And I want my life to be a reflection of a spirit of gratitude. So, in any way I can, we try as a family, as a business with inFusion, we try to affect the community in a positive way. So whether we're working, we have a sweet spot for kids, right? For kids that have gone through a tough time. So certainly most of the work is done with children that have either experienced abuse or neglect, or living in difficult situations, or families in need, whether it's a family that's, having a difficult time, or someone that, it could be that single mom that is having a difficult time and maybe going through an illness, and we can step in and provide for that family. We can step in and in some way help a nonprofit to become sustainable by getting their message out there and help just spreading the word so others can take part in that mission. Because, we all have a story to tell, and we all can make a difference in many different ways. I truly believe that everyone has a vital part in changing the world. Right? We just have to get moving. Yeah. So I'm like one of those people that get people moving, right? So if I know that there's a cause, if I know that there's a need, I want to be part of that change. And I think that, when we're faced with so much that's going on in this world today, and maybe there's somebody out there that's sitting at home watching this, and they're thinking, gosh, I really want to make a difference. Well, the moment you step out your door, you can make a difference. Whether it's a kind word, whether it's reaching out to your local nonprofit organization, whatever your favorite cause is. If you want a great cause for kids, call his house. Call so many others that are in your backyard. But pick up that phone and volunteer. Volunteer with your time. Volunteer making phone calls. Volunteer however you can. Whether it's food distribution or baking a cake for a neighbor. But make a difference. Live to give. And if we can all go into that mode where every little bit can make a huge difference in someone's life, we would live in a better world. Oh, yeah. So with inFusion, we want to make sure, the name of the company, the name of the organization is inFusion Consulting. But the reason why the Lord gave me inFusion, because I kept asking the Lord, give me a name that would really describe what we want to do. And that's exactly what we do. We try to infuse the good however we can, whether it's collaborating with people or whatever we can to make a difference in the small things, right? Because the good works come in many different sizes. So it's in the small things or the bigger things, whatever God places our way, we want to be a part of it.
Well, I think I'm reading Jessica's comments right now. She's saying that you're the one who pushed her to start the ministry, which I think is so amazing, because I can tell you honestly, I started this year serving in this ministry, and it's so incredibly rewarding. I volunteered at his house before, doing other things through my church, but I had never done it like this before. So I totally agree with you. I think any small thing, any way that you can help, you should help. And, especially like what amazes me about you is just that, and why I respect so much of your story is that you've been through this whirlwind of all these things, and still, you know, you have this clear vision and you have this drive to still do good onto others, to still pour your heart out onto others. And I think that that's so important, because I think that everybody goes through difficulty in life, and one way or another, like you said, everybody has their own story. Everybody's going to go through their own thing, but it's taking that situation and letting God take control and really making that into a good thing. And I'm amazed by your story. I'm amazed by you. I think that that's so incredible. And I think that, because like I said, I know we don't have that much time today, but the last thing that I was going to ask you was if you could say anything to, you know, a kid that was kind of like in the same situation as you, what would you say to them? What would you tell them? What would be your advice to somebody who is kind of going through something like what you did right now?
Sure. You know, I think that one of the things that I had the hardest time with was giving love a chance, right? Giving trust and giving myself an opportunity to trust someone was really hard. And so I would say the Lord is never going to have a blind eye to you when you're going through a tough time. He knows who you are. He knows your name. He knows exactly what you're going through. And he's going to send people your way to help you, to lend a helping hand in the right moment, and to trust that. Give Jesus a chance. You know, you can trust him. And that was hard. That was really, really hard for me. But the moment I did, like the moment I made that decision to allow someone in, to allow myself to trust again, then God did all the rest, you know? And he is a promise keeper. You know, everyone in the whole world would disappoint us. We're going to disappoint people too, right?
Yeah.
We're going to hurt and disappoint people too. But, you know, if you can just give God a chance, give the word of God a chance. You know, when Jessica felt called to put together this ministry, I said to her very quickly, I said, you know, there has to be a time where you just stop praying and you start doing. Right? And because I saw the fire and the passion in her. But you can have a whole lot of passion and stand still.
Right.
Right? And then that does absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
But when you are called to do something and trust God enough to take that first move, then it's like an explosion of blessings, right? So those kids, you know, kids that are part of 180 today, you all that are volunteering may see their response, may see the outcome today, or you may not see it for a long time. But every kind word that you pour into each life is like that little seed that starts chipping away at the woundedness. And there's going to be a day when that kid is going to be a grown-up, and they're going to have to make a decision, and they're going to remember that one thing that you said. You know, 46 years ago, I walked out of my foster parents' home. That kind of tells you how old I am.
Yeah.
And
it doesn't matter.
2 weeks ago, I received a message from them saying, every single day we remember you. Every single day we remember you.
Oh my gosh.
I want you to know that every single day from the moment that we met you, you have been loved.
Oh my God.
And that's exactly what you guys are doing with the kids. Every single moment that you're with them, you are loving, you're depositing that love, right? That somebody tried to take away. You're depositing that, and they're receiving it. You know, before this interview, I was watching the graduation party of one of the girls that graduated from high school. So I was a little late calling in because I was watching her video, and I'm like in tears. I'm like, oh my gosh. You know, she's always going to remember. She is always going to remember that graduation parade that took place today at his house. She's always going to remember that people cared enough to celebrate this great milestone in her life. So what I would say to the kids is that don't lose hope, that you're surrounded with people that love you, that want to love on you, want you to trust them, and they have a great friend. His name is Jesus, and he can change everything, and he will. And you have a whole lifetime to make a difference in someone else's life because of your story. So don't miss a chance to make a difference, because it could change a life, save a life forever, forever, right? So our story is for his glory. We got to share it for his glory, right? Our story doesn't end here. There's an after this, and whatever you do with that after this, it could be a breaking point, right? You can have an amazing life because you've learned these very tough lessons that will shape you into an amazing, amazing person for tomorrow. Or you can choose differently. I say choose the first one, right? Trust a little, let people in, and let Jesus do a whole lot for you. And everything else will fall into place. He did it for me.
Right. Oh my God. Well, Iris, I can tell you honestly, you've inspired me today. I was tired. I felt a little like, it's Friday. I worked all day, but honestly, your story is so beautiful, and you're a beautiful person. And thank you so much for sharing, your story and for answering these questions, because honestly, it's everything that you just said. I'm a firm believer in. We either choose to let these things shape us into the amazing people that we are destined to be, that we're born to be, or we choose otherwise. But if we choose the first option, then we have so much potential to be so much more in life. And that's what God wants for all of us.
Right. That's right.
So I know you're running a little crunched on time, short on time. So I just want to say thank you so much. Like I said, hearing your story has honestly impacted me, and I'm so grateful to be able to have had the opportunity to interview you. And I hope that when things go back to normal, that we meet in person, because I'd love to talk to you more.
Sure thing.
But just thank you so much for everything, and just continue to be so amazing. You're just I don't even know. I'm at a loss for words.
Thank you all.
Honestly, you are an amazing person, and just thank you so much.
You guys rock. Keep doing what you're doing. It's important. What you're doing is amazing. Amazing. So keep doing what you're doing, and let's hope that that this inspires others to join you, because you're touching the lives of kids now, but there's 100 more kids that are coming through the doors, that need you all. They need to be inspired. They need to see the hope of Christ through each and every one of you. So I love what you all are doing. Just know you can count on my support always. Call on me anytime. And this is to be continued. There's a lot more to the story. Trust me.
Oh my goodness. Well, Iris, like I said, I don't want to take too much of your time, but thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate you so much. And I hope that you have a great rest of your day. And
thank you.
Thank you 20 million times.
God bless you. God bless you all.
God bless you
Love
too.
You all.
Bye, Iris.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.